You're watching CoinDesk. This next interview is one of the highlights from Consensus 2025.
Hello, Toronto. Oh, you guys could do better than that. Come on. Hello, Toronto. How about that? Well, I love Consensus. I've been here many times. This is the first time I've gone to Consensus in Toronto. The last time I went was Austin, and it was 105 degrees. Whatever that is in Celsius, you Canucks. Okay. So we're here today to talk about a lot of really exciting, incredible things. There's an enormous amount of innovation in the stablecoin space. There's an enormous amount of innovation in the DeFi space. Just by the numbers, they'll give you a baseline. Stablecoins are one of the most successful assets in the history of cryptocurrencies. $243 billion of them minted, 120 million transactions a month. Vast majority are tokenized treasuries, so they're the very first use case of a real-world asset. And this is a growing and fertile space. It's probably going to grow to over $1 trillion by 2030. And so we're joined today by a lot of great pioneers from different places. And I'd like to start with Eric. And first off, American Bitcoin. I just want to ask, I always give people an opportunity to introduce what they do and their venture. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, thanks so much, guys. And Canada, it's great to be with you. We love you very much. And it's awesome to be up here. You guys have treated us so well. The reception this entire team has gotten since we've been up here is incredible. So thanks, and we love you. I care about two projects in crypto: World Liberty, with two of my best friends right here, and American Bitcoin. I'll introduce American Bitcoin quickly because that was the question. But effectively, we want to be the lowest cost miner anywhere on Earth. We're doing it out of Texas. We're doing it in conjunction with Hut 8. We're mining Bitcoin at 35, 40 cents to the dollar of what it's obviously trading for. Again, lowest cost energy, and we're mining a ton of it, and I think we're going to be the most explosive Bitcoin mining company anywhere in the world, hence American Bitcoin. We're doing it in a country I love with a product I love, which is digital gold. The other project is World Liberty Financial, and I can't tell you, I don't think there's ever been a crypto project that's growing quite as fast as what we're doing on this front. It's absolutely amazing. We launched USD1 a couple weeks ago, and fastest growing stablecoin and I think the history of stablecoins by a factor of a lot, and the announcements that are coming up in the next few weeks are really astronomical. And again, it's back to the very American-centric theme. It is, everybody around the world loves the US dollar. They want to be on the US dollar. There was a stablecoin that was launched in Europe, and only half of 1% of Europeans wanted anything to do with the stablecoin that was based on the euro. Where did everybody want to be? They all wanted to be on the US dollar, and so I think it's an amazingly kind of patriotic act. And I think it's one of these things that really can spread to the entire world and give so much freedom of kind of financial choice, especially to markets and countries where people have never had any kind of financial freedom, had never had any kind of financial independence. Might be in a country where it's war-torn, where it's subject to corruption, it's subject to ridiculous inflation. Every single day they go to work and their money is being burned under their mattress, and all of a sudden we give the world the ability to be on the US dollar, backed one-to-one by US treasuries, and a lot of other aspects of World Liberty, which we can get into on the DeFi side. But I've never been more excited about two projects. This has really become my blood, my life, and soul, and it's a great honor to be here in Canada with all of you.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and we'll get to World Liberty now, and that's so let's start with USD1. Zach, I guess there's multiple Zachs. You're Zach 1, I remember, right? And you're Zach
1.
All right, Zach 1. All right, so Zach 1.
It's interchangeable.
Speaking of 1, USD1. So what is USD1? What's the value proposition? Let's kind of walk through what you're bringing to the market that's unique and new.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess just to sort of bring up a perfect example of what USD1's mission is take our, the recent transaction that MGX took $2 billion and invested it into Binance, right? Had that transaction not settled in USD1, MGX was likely going to use some sort of foreign currency, likely UAE dirham, maybe Chinese yuan, and by them taking that currency, converting it into USD1, we've inherently we've increased demand for the U.S. Treasury, in a place where they probably weren't going to use it otherwise, right? And you sort of zoom out from a retail level. Eric was, sort of touching on it earlier, and there are all these countries where, financial freedoms are restricted, or, you know, it costs them 5 to 9% to get their hands on US dollars, and to us that's unacceptable. You know, using USD1, right, there's very minimal fees, it's 24/7, there are no banking hours, and we think, you know, that that's doing a huge service, not only for our country by increasing access and demand for the US Treasury, but ultimately the world. Because like Eric said, you know, there's a huge demand out there for US dollars.
Massive demand. And as Eric said, it's absolutely true. We thought about years ago doing a yen-backed stablecoin and a euro-backed stablecoin, and when we polled people, there was absolutely no demand. They wanted the United States dollar for stablecoins. So to Zach, too, you know, where do you see this market? Because I know you've been in this industry for a long time, I think since like 2013, 2014, and you kind of watched it evolve and grow. So where do you see the stablecoin landscape going over the next 5 years, 15 years?
Yeah, so everyone's familiar with Circle, Tether. They're both phenomenal projects that have, you know, lots of different use cases, whether it's DeFi, spot trading, retail adoption. And they've each done a phenomenal job of their particular use cases. Obviously, USD1 is already live on certain centralized exchanges. We have a lot more listings that are coming. We have a lot of DeFi protocol integration already. And there's already retail adoption where you can actually go and book a hotel room right now using USD1 as the currency. So that's all well and good, but with USD1, our goal is not to just take little bites out of the other stablecoins that are currently in the space. Instead, we look at our real competition as fiat dollars, right? Every single day, there are trillions of dollars of transactions that are taking place in old, outdated currency. And probably everyone in this room remembers when cell phones first came out, moved on to the smartphone. Technology has evolved so much. But over the years, the one thing that hasn't really evolved very much is currency. And we believe that there's a huge demand and a huge need, especially with the internet, everything coming online, everything coming on chain, to actually give the US dollar a massive upgrade, make it digital, make it more usable, and make it more friendly for a lot more use cases so that people can transact faster, more reliable, and more secure than traditional banking rails or cash payment settlements.
Sounds like you're brewing for some sort of major announcement maybe today.
We'll see. We'll see.
Okay. And we have a guy on the end of the panel. There you go, Sergey. So he and I are very similar. We both wear plaid shirts. We both have beards. We get confused at conferences. So what's Chainlink in all of this? You guys doing anything interesting?
Yeah. So I think there's a huge amount of institutional adoption that we're involved in. And I think that's kind of leading me to wear suits. Basically what's happening if we're discussing the
Makes
what I'm
two of us.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Generally speaking, I would say, yeah, there's a lot of great stuff going on in our industry in general. There's a lot of great stuff in DC. We have great stuff we're doing with World Liberty in the institutional world. And I think that we can bring the existing financial system and the DeFi system together into one kind of large overall global system that, you know, benefits the consumer, benefits society, benefits really everybody. So.
And I want to follow up a bit because, you know, you're a domain expert on oracles, and Chainlink is in a very enviable position of having a kind of a God's eye view of every single chain and all the information flows. So how has the DeFi space transformed the last few years, especially given that there are now real-world assets and these assets like USD1? You know, where are we at? Where are we going with that industry?
I would say that in the DeFi space, you have now sub-ecosystems of like modular components that can be composed into a world-class financial institution. So you have derivatives, DEX, markets like Hyperlane and well, not that. In any case, a whole bunch of them. There's a whole bunch of different DEX, perp DEX environments. There's DEX trading environments. There's lending markets, right? Like Aave and what World Liberty is doing. There are different payment mechanisms. World Liberty has the USD1 stablecoin. So you basically have a number of these modular components. You have payment rails, you have trading environments, you have lending market environments, And these environments would have historically lived in a financial institution at a very high cost of operation, very high cost of licensing, very high cost of really just kind of a transaction for everybody. And now you have these modular building blocks, which 3, 4, 5 years ago, they were just starting to be built. Now the modular building blocks in total are back to about 240, 250 billion in total value locked, which is close to the height that they were before. But they reached that previous height off a very small base of high-quality building blocks. Now you have a very large and very high-quality base of building blocks. And that's one of the reasons I believe that we can go very far past 250 billion in DeFi. We can go to like 2 trillion or 3 trillion. And I think the type of stablecoin that World Liberty Finance is making is going to be a big part of that, because you need highly reliable, institutional grade, aligned with government kind of payment rails. And those payment rails are very important because they allow liquidity to flow into those modular pieces and to work well. And so I think that a high quality stablecoin like USD1 is a critical modular component and building block. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I wish I could just talk about technical stuff all day, but actually I do want to talk shop about business. So Zach 1, how do you want to use Chainlink as you guys grow in the next few years? Like, what do you think Chainlink can bring to the table for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there's so many things Chainlink can do for us. It's hard to cover all of them on the stage. I mean, like you said, Sergey's the king of pricing oracles. I think, you know, obviously that'll be integrated into our DeFi platform eventually. I think I won't steal the other Zach's thunder. He's got a pretty cool announcement coming up that maybe he wants to just...
Should you just jump in now?
I think you should just go for it.
Okay, so like Sergey was saying, Chainlink is absolutely critical to merging traditional finance and decentralized finance, which has been our mission at World Liberty Financial ever since the start. We don't see a world where DeFi exists in its own ecosystem and traditional finance carries on, but we believe in a very short amount of time that they will, in fact, merge and just be the future of finance. So to that end, World Liberty Financial, our USD1 token, is now bridgeable across chain, thanks to the incredible people at CCIP, which have enabled this cross-chain compatibility. Currently, yep. And so right now, you can actually bridge USD1 from Ethereum to BSC and back and forth. And I know that you guys announced with Justin that USD1 will be coming to Tron very, very soon. And then you will be able to bridge it across that network as well, with many more networks to follow. Our goal with USD1 is to be absolutely everywhere that people are transacting. So ultimately, powered by Chainlink, you will be able to do that with USD1. So yeah, we're really excited about that. And one thing, just to take it a step further, I'm sure people know that Sergey and the whole team at Chainlink have been working very hard on integrating with traditional financial institutions, which is our ultimate goal. So thanks to being compatible and integrated with CCIP, when they actually get all of that online with traditional financial institutions like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, et cetera, USD1 will actually be grandfathered in at those institutions and will be composable with those institutions as well.
That's pretty cool.
So the future of finance is actually here right now. And just one more thing to point out, the first bridge of USD1 from Ethereum to BSC was for $47. So if you see it on chain, that was us testing the bridge.
Yeah, it's so cool when you think about the scale of these things. We have a microfinance shop over in Kenya, and we gave about $5 million of loans over the last year and to over 70,000 people in Uganda and Kenya, and the sizes were usually under $50, and the repayments was over a 90-day period. When you use stablecoins, you don't have the Forex risk, you don't have any of the local politics get in the way, and almost no transaction fees to service those things. So it really makes finance local, and we were able to get the interest rate from 85% down to 18%, with the non-performing loan rate at only 2%. Normally it's 40% NPL rate, so 20 times less on the NPL. So let's talk about this to Eric, and I think we're kindred spirits in a certain respect in that being a member of the cryptocurrency space, we've been debanked, and we've had a unique relationship with many financial institutions. Even though we're in full compliance, they just shut our accounts down. And I always like asking people who have a wide perspective of things of how do you want the banking industry to change over the next 5 years, 10 years, and how do you think technology like what World Liberty Finance and USD1 are doing can help transform that to a more ethical, honest, and ultimately neutral industry instead of not neutral?
So this is maybe my favorite question of all, and I think everybody in here probably knows that Trumps aren't very good at biting their tongue, so I'm just going to be very direct. The modern financial system is broken, guys. It's absolutely broken. It's slow, it's expensive, it's antiquated, and it's broken. I run one of the greatest real estate companies in the world, and there's not a single Friday, and I say this all the time, that goes by where I'm not waiting for a swift wire transfer to come through at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, either sending one out or waiting for one to come through. Yet, you know, the same night while drinking a glass of wine with your wife, you can send out $1 million worth of Bitcoin. It can hit somebody's wallet 3 seconds later if you wanted to do it, right? There's a massive disconnect between the technology of crypto and the technology of the biggest banks around the world. Second of all, so many of those banks have been weaponized. And I was, case in point, I was probably the most canceled person for doing absolutely nothing wrong, only because we had a political view, and a political view that might not have been popular with some of the big financial institutions. And guys, they came after me like I was a dog. I mean, I was a guy who never missed a loan payment. I was a guy who, you know, had the greatest assets in the world, was incredibly under-levered. I mean, operated a great company. It just always did the right thing, never got into trouble, no commas out of place. And they canceled us like we were a piece of, I wish I could say it, but, and it was really interesting. I would have never fallen into this world. I mean that. I just would have never fallen into this world if the very same people who were attacking me for no reason happened to be the same people that were attacking all of us really on the stage, all of you, everybody out in this audience. I mean, how many people out there lost accounts from the biggest banks because, yeah, I mean, everybody's raising their hands, right? You lost accounts to the biggest banks because you happen to like buying Ethereum or Bitcoin. I mean, it's simple examples now that would literally make you laugh, and you realize how unfair it was. And I'm a guy that's sitting there. There's a lot of zeros on our balance sheet, as you can probably imagine. If they could do it to us, believe me, they can take down the guy that doesn't have the financial wherewithal, that doesn't have the balance sheet that we have. And it's so fundamentally unconstitutional. It's so fundamentally improper. But I looked at my wife one day and I said, you know, we went to buy a house, and this was under my father's first term where interest rates were 2%. And I go, listen, honey, we'd be schmucks not to go out and take a loan, right? You know, you're borrowing effectively free money. And they put me through 120 days of nonsense, paper forms, you know your customer reports. I'd been banking with that bank for 25 years. They knew that my assets exceeded the value of the house by many times. They made my life absolutely hell. And I'm sitting there saying, how can this be? I mean, why is it that, again, using Bitcoin, why is it using Ethereum, why is it based on using USD1, you can transfer millions, billions around the world instantaneously? Yet if I want to pull out a couple of bucks because I want to buy the dream house with my partner, I can't do it. Guys, our financial institution is screwed up. SWIFT is screwed up. It doesn't work. It's behind the times. Bankers have not kept up with technology. They have not. And by the way, bankers have been punitive to all of us, to so many people in this. And by the way, if they're doing that in the United States of America, you know what they'll do in third world countries? And that's what made me fall in love with these people. That's what made us fall in love with this interest, with this community. Again, we were a family that only bought hard assets. I mean, we didn't believe in the things that you couldn't see that were, you know, kind of opaque to, and all of a sudden you realize that those were actually the most valuable assets because of all the safeguards that come with it. That they're cheaper, that they're faster, that they're more transparent, they're more modern. They can't be set on fire. They can't disappear. They can't disappear based on corruption. They can't be devalued. And I love it. I love this industry, and I love the people. You know, they say, there's a famous saying that sometimes the enemy of your enemy is actually your best friend. That was the Trumps with the crypto community, and I think the banks made the biggest mistake of their lives.
I have the same fire, so I have a personal story. I had $300 million in a bank that shall remain nameless. It's a large U.S. bank. And I also had a relationship with their private wealth group. And suddenly the bank gives us notice. They say, we're shutting your account down. You have 2 weeks to move all your funds. And we say, excuse me, why? We're not being investigated. We're not being audited. There's no lawsuits. There's no criminal activity. They say, we don't care. So I called the private wealth group, and then the CEO of that group called the compliance desk of the bank and said, hey, can we do something here? Can they provide more documentation or something like that? So the decision's already been made, came from Treasury. This is what happened during the Biden administration. It was a pretty bleak and horrible time, and I'd heard of a lot of people being unbanked, and I'd lost an account or two on the boundaries, but something like this had never happened. And it blindsided me, and it just made me so bitter. And it really is the case that all innovation in fintech right now is being led at the compliance desk and by bureaucrats. And what's so magical about the cryptocurrency space is now we get to take our innovation back and we get to bring it to the whole world. I was just down in Argentina the other day and I was talking to the economic ministers there, and they said, Charles, what's really special about crypto in Argentina? I said, what? So we have a $700 billion GDP. $100 billion of it is now in crypto assets, mostly stablecoin, mostly US-backed stablecoins. And I said, why is that? And they say, well, have you been paying attention to inflation lately? Central bank's not doing the best of job, managing things, so everybody's just going to a private standard. So ultimately, people want to be free. They want to be left alone. They want to have control over their assets. They want to have self-determination. I think that's the most American spirit that we can export. And so I'd like to turn this over to Sergey real quickly, since we're both in the technology space. What is the delta for what we need to do in the cryptocurrency space to kill the compliance desk? How do we get to algorithmic regulation? How do we restore privacy? Since we're starting to bridge the TradFi and the DeFi space and just make it Fi, how do we get back to the people here being in charge of their money instead of banks being in charge of their money and governments being in charge of their money?
Yeah, so what you're describing with the debanking issue is really kind of a trust issue. And our industry and the method of consensus avoids trust issues, right? So the problem is that they unfairly, without proper justification or proof of any kind, are able to control a system in a way that is asymmetrically better for them but worse for you, right, from a debanking point of view. So the answer is that you codify all the conditions under which debanking can happen, you codify all the conditions under which compliance happens, and you create a kind of state of hyper-automation. And that state of hyper-automation is a group of contracts on chain fed by a group of oracles that prove identity, prove know your transaction information, prove account holdings, prove things to those contracts about the real world. And you need both, right? You need the contracts to be the automated processing center of the compliance question. And those contracts will be public and available on chain so that everybody can verify the conditions under which you can be added or removed. And then you need the oracles around the contracts to prove the relevant data to the contracts, which could be the current state of your account holdings, the current value of your assets, the current state of your identity, that you're not on an OFAC list, that you're not on any kind of list of people that aren't allowed to do transactions of certain types. And then you can take the trustless, tamper-proof, cryptographically driven guarantees of the Bitcoin world, or the thing I was trying to, the example I had before was Hyperliquid from the Perp Dex. I misspoke, it was called Hyperliquid, and just a million great things going on, so it's hard for me to keep track. But you can now cryptographically guarantee that your participation in the system happens under certain conditions that cannot be modified later. And then if you cannot modify or you cannot manipulate the oracles who prove things about you to that compliance system, then you get two great benefits. Benefit number one in a state of hyperautomation is you remove people, you remove cost. That people and cost getting removed lowers the cost of compliance very low. The second thing you get is these cryptographic guarantees such that you cannot be removed. And that's actually what we advocate for, what I described. That's what we're advocating for in DC with the Treasury and the OCC and the regulators, is that there should be a US standard for the automation of compliance. And that if you can actually lower the cost of compliance you can make US issued digital assets more attractive. Because if you can transact with those assets at a very low cost of compliance, then they fundamentally are more attractive. And so this automation of compliance is really, I would say, one of the next big things that can be, I would say, a feature of our industry. Like being able to do compliance better is a feature. Even though we don't like compliance, we still have to do it to comply with various legal standards. So this is, we have a very good approach for this, and I think it'll work well, and it'll work.
And that's why you're here. You know, just to tell the audience the global cost of compliance, I had to look it up because it's so crazy. It's about $500 billion globally every year. Compliance. Those are the paper pushers, the T crossers, the I dotters, the SAR reports, these things. To give you a sense of how expensive that is, every 3 years you could buy Tokyo, the city of Tokyo. So every decade we get about 3 Tokyos from our compliance costs. And what we're talking about just as one game, that you get only one thing in the cryptocurrency space. The automation of compliance means that's probably going to go down by a factor of 100. And right here, made in America, which I'm just extremely excited about that prospect, that there's a lot of great entrepreneurs that are thinking about how to export this thinking, and America's big enough and strong enough that it can kind of compel the world and say, let's all get on the bus, let's all get on the train. You know, and we appreciate Europe and MiCA and the ADGM and Abu Dhabi and other places, but sometimes you need a large economy to convince the entire world that that's the standard that we have to follow. So, Zach, one, I would be remiss if I didn't ask this. In addition to being a cryptocurrency guy and a Bison guy, I own a construction company. I got about 200 employees in Gillette, Wyoming. So I think these days a hell of a lot about hard assets. When are hard assets coming to World Liberty Finance? You guys talk about that, think about that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think hard assets are coming sooner than you think. We're working on a lot of interesting RWAs, whether it be commercial real estate, rare earth minerals, things of that sort. So we're definitely hard at work. I mean, listen, our core mission at World Liberty is to really, Eric touched on it, but there's 1.4 billion unbanked people on this earth. 1.4 billion people without access to financial tools. And then you factor in what we call the underbanked, right? And that's hundreds of millions and more. So you're talking about upwards of 1.5 billion people walking the earth without the access to basic financial tools. All you need to access USD1 is a smartphone. I'll say it again. All you need to access USD1 is a smartphone. There are no intermediaries. There are no hidden fees. There's no games. There's no spooky guy behind the curtain telling you that you can't send your money. And most importantly, there's no banking hours. We operate 24/7. 7 days a week, anytime you want to send USD1, you take out your smartphone and you send it. Eventually, you know, again, in the not-so-distant future, I think that will enable that for RWAs. And frankly, like, just look at, you know, real estate, for example, or oil, the 2 biggest asset classes in the world. You know, the vast majority of people don't have access to these assets, right? I mean, Eric, me, Zach, Sergey, you, sure, like we have access, you know, we're accredited investors, right? So we have access to all these things, but why shouldn't, you know, the general public have access to these incredible asset classes? It makes no sense. And so, yeah, I mean, we want to democratize that, and, you know, we're really excited to do it shortly.
I'm excited about that, too. I mean, it changes people's lives, because the minute you can create liquidity with a hard asset, it doesn't matter if it's $1 billion hard asset like a tower in New York or a $50 hard asset. You can use that for credit, and that changes people's lives. All right, Eric, we got 15 seconds. You want to close us out?
Well, what I'll say, guys, is we are in the dial-up phase of, I think, the greatest financial revolution our world has ever seen. And we have an industry that's coming together in an amazing way. I sit at tables all the time, and I've never seen more diversity at these tables. You know, this is a community. It's really a global community. It's a comfortable community. And it's a community that's all fighting for the same thing. I mean, a lot of it's actually human rights. A lot of it's obviously financial independence, financial freedom. And guys, we're winning this fight right now. We're winning this fight. I want to say that as a family, we had something to do with it, because America is going to lead the world in the crypto revolution. But the crypto space is winning the fight that we're in right now. It's because of amazing people like all of you. It's because of amazing people like the people that are on this stage. And I'm telling you, if we look back in 15 years, just remember this conference. Remember us all up here. And I know you're all nodding your heads as I say this, but we're going to look back and we're going to say, hey, we were the half of 1% who got it before everybody else woke up to what's happening around them. And I think kind of from a profitability standpoint, from a commercial standpoint, I think that's going to pay massive dividends. But let me end with one more message to the community. Do it smartly and do it honestly and self-police ourselves, right? We have to be the best. We have to be better than anybody. We have to be above reproach. That's how we win. And also start thinking about hospitality, because it's one aspect of crypto that I think has really kind of fallen by the wayside. It's been too hard. It's been too hard to access DeFi. It's been too convoluted for so many people who might not be tech forward. The faster we self-police an industry, and I think we're doing a hell of a job doing it right now, because you have some incredibly serious people in this industry, and I think you're looking at some of them. And the faster that we can embrace hospitality, the faster that this is going to reach the masses. But again, guys, we love you very much. On behalf of myself and World Liberty and everybody up here, honored to be part of this fight. I've never been more excited for anything in my entire life. And we're winning, guys. We're winning as an industry. So thank you, Canada. We love you guys. We love you. Thank you.